ahead and show you how I set up my wedgie sled. So right now I have the blade all the way down. Take out my standard throat plate here. And I replace it with this one I custom made for the wedgie sled. It has got a little off ramp on this side for the chips. And I do have to take off the riving knife to make this work. But we're not going to be in a spot where we need the riving knife. Of course, the saw is unplugged right now. So riving knife and the shop box comes out super simple. I cut this to be press fit, so it kind of gets in there and you just stick it right in. Easiest way in the world to make a custom throat plate for your saw is to use the old template as a router plate and then use a pattern bit on top with the bearing. I can show you how to do that if you're interested in seeing a quick video on how to make a zero clearance faceplate. But I have a spot to hang that here. So first thing is I get my zero clearance in, and I get my wedgie sled. In an earlier video, I showed you how I built this wedgie sled. This is not novel to me. I followed other people's designs on this one. This was kind of based off the Seg Easy design. So I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos, 4 or 5 different people, how they made their sleds, what they did. The one thing I did do originally is I was making my own wedges. I'll even show you the one I made. Hold on. So I went and took an 1/8 inch piece of standard ply and cut the angles using my miter saw to get both angles exactly the same, and slid it in here, and it ended up being pretty darn close, but it's not exactly perfect. So I went ahead, and I'll throw a link in my description, and I bought a full set. It goes all the way to 40 segments of wedges. These are 3D printed, and I think I have it set up right now for 12. I'm just going to double check that we're good here. Everything's nice and tight. Still good and tight. So we could go to, this one will make 12. If we wanted to, say, make 16 segment bowl, all we have to do is loosen up our fences and try to get it as close. I have one center line in here, so I kind of look at where the center line is going to be. Get them both in there nice and tight. Tighten one fence first, and then make sure to push it in nice and tight again. Lock that down. Now we're set up to turn segments that are 16 across. So the only issue, the more segments you do, obviously you have more loss with your curve. If we're doing 16 segments, we're making all those cuts, and each of those takes 1/8 of an inch away from your stock. So you end up with, quite a bit of material loss when you're the more segments you make. But we'll do this bowl in 16. I've already done one in 12. And what I'm going to cut first are the segments of maple and walnut. So we can go up one test string just to get an idea if we like the way it looks or not. So I'll change the position here, or maybe I can just zoom. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking off all what we call the little fuzzies on the ends of our pieces, the little saw extra fibers. Not trying to change anything in an angle at all. We want to make sure that we're just getting anything that's going to interfere with our glue joints off the edges. And I'm putting them up like so. So it's not a whole lot of detail sanding here. We just want to make sure you have nice flat edges. There's no little fuzzies that are going to interfere with your glue joint in any way, right? Put those up. You can kind of see what we're going to do here. Kind of get a little bit of a brown and white checkerboard pattern, and then that feature ring that we're working on earlier will end up being the thinnest part on the very top, kind of a rim detail, if we end up going that route. We have enough walnut right now in the shop and some cherry and a little bit of maple. I have one maple stick left here. I think we'll have enough, and we can pretty much do anything we want for this bowl, as long as you don't get crazy on the size. And I don't anticipate doing that, to be honest. I think as I'm learning how to do this well, it's better to kind of pace yourself, not jump too far ahead of the curve here. And I think that I am one short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's 8. Oh, I had those extra 2 walnut pieces from our first cut that I went ahead and sanded off too. So we'll pull a couple of those out. And now our ring's back to the size we should be looking at here. So we'll kind of push these in together a little bit here. The walnut's a teeny bit thinner than the maple, which won't impact us here because we're going to be turning all that away anyway. I have all of our bits of all of the part with the writing facing up. I'll slide that one in there. Now I can move my pegs in just a full row. Now this little jig here is something I just built. It allows me to use rubber bands to kind of compress my rings and get an idea how they're going to look. Just a little bit too small or too big a ring to use the next set in. So what we'll do is we'll just grab a big rubber band here out of my rubber band bag, and we'll stretch that rubber band around these pegs if we can. Might not be a big enough rubber band, to be honest. This is what I want to use for my dry fit. So I do have one really large rubber band. If I have half a brain, or would have had that sitting out in front of us when I was getting ready to do this, so we could turn that around there. But I think when I was cleaning it from the last project, I put those in a box somewhere. So let me see if I can find that real quick. Here we go. All right, so I do have a larger rubber band. This is actually a clipboard rubber band. You've probably seen them at job sites and stuff where the guys are holding the papers down with clipboard. It's probably not going to be quite strong enough. We'll see. We'll see if it's the right size. If not, we're going to have to get out a C-clamp to start this up. But I like to do my dry fits with a rubber band if possible. Oh boy, let that just come apart all the way here. Should come back in and fill this up. I'm sure by now you're used to the comedy of errors that is me trying to do things for the first time on camera. So here we go. Slowly but surely it should be starting to take shape here. Two pins left. It's just going to be a little loose for this rubber band, but you can get a good idea of exactly how that ring came up. We've got some nice tight joints everywhere. All of our joints look good. And cut this one, looks a little off. Squeeze them together, it's fine. So that is kind of the look for the rings we have. We have a nice flat up here. We'll still run that through the drum sander to get it perfectly flat before we glue it up. But that would probably be the center diameter of this piece we're working on right now. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that up, put a C-clamp around it, and we'll let that sit overnight. And I'll get to cutting the rest of the feature rings, and we'll bring you back when we're ready for a little bit more of a glue up. Appreciate you joining me. So when I'm doing my glue ups, I try to stage my C-clamp so I know it's going to fit over everything when we're ready. Get that kind of pre-done with a screwdriver. And then here's where things get crazy. I got to make sure you keep them in the right order. The face up where we drew our lines, so we know that all of our pieces are going to fit together right. And what I do is I'll start generally closest to me with one side. I'll put a little bit of my tight bond on there, and I'll rub the pieces together. That's how I get a nice glue coverage. Now you're probably wondering why I spend all this time letting glue get on my countertop here. This is a really nice piece of maple plywood that I put a coat of poly on, so it doesn't. The glue just comes right off of it real easy. Real easy to just scrape it off when it dries. I have a silicone mat coming, but I'm trying to think if I really even know that really makes any sense for me or not, since the top cleans up so easy. If you put a good coat of poly on stuff, boom, no issues at all with glue sticking to it. You can still glue things to your countertop, which I have done, and my workbench surface here, that's not something that I'm proud of, but I think we probably all do. But, so all I do is I just kind of rub these in nice there, push it out to the end, and keep going around in the circle till we're ready to put the C-clamp back on. Doesn't take a whole lot of glue, but you want a good squeeze out, is what I've been told for these segmented projects. So I make sure that I keep it going in the order that we had them together in our dry fit, so we know that we're gonna have nice tight joints. If you guys saw the last segmented piece I did, or the first one even, just a little more fun to say, the first one, not my last one, I had a couple of joints that weren't exactly perfect, and I couldn't quite figure out why, because they looked perfect after doing the dry fit. They looked great after I sanded them with the drum sander, and then when I got into turning them, there was just some gaps in the middle there. So make sure you don't have any sawdust or any little fuzzies or something stuck in between your joints. You can end up losing a nice tight fit, because you're going to turn all these points off. So as you're getting into the wood, that's what we're really concerned about, is that inner and outer mean diameter that we're going to be able to come up with will actually be our wall thickness in our bowl. So it's a really time consuming, but I think it's very rewarding when you get to that final piece and you see something that you just can't do turning a natural piece of timber. And you get to make a really nice size fancy bowl without having to put any of the headaches in a giant piece of wood and leaving half of that on the ground and shavings. You can just get a board and spend a little bit of your leisure time doing the sanding or the milling. Get all your segments done, stuff like that. You'll find it's really quite rewarding. So we get all of our pieces together here, and I don't have a power drill out here right now. I was doing some maintenance inside. So I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way. Screwdriver right here. We'll just clamp this down. Pretty much do it. A nice squeeze out. We'll wipe off all the excess to make it easier on our sander for later. I have found that if I leave too much squeeze out, don't scrape that off really well, when it gets to the drum sander, I pay a huge penalty in eating up the sandpaper. It's not that big of a deal to change it, to be honest. But still, you don't want to waste anything if you don't have to. All of our resources are limited. So just give it a crank down until I feel it in there, and inspect my joints. Slide anything around, might need to be slid around. Does look good. Make sure that everything's nice and flat. Let you squeeze that off. Nice tight joints everywhere here. That's our other side. Yeah, I think we're going to be really pleased with all these joints here. So that gives you an idea. You get a little checkerboard feature, and we stack these together, and we'll rotate them over so that they'll build kind of a brick pattern, or we could just barely offset them as we turn up. It'll give you kind of a swirl around the outside of the bowl. You can understand. So we'll let that one dry up, and it'll be ready to mount to our next ring after that. So I'm going to make the next ring for this one a little bit smaller in diameter, and we'll build up a base, probably a 3-ring base, and then we'll glue up some walnut and maple to make our glue block for the bottom. We'll glue everything together on that. We'll make some interesting pattern maybe for that as well, so it'll be kind of cool looking. We also have the option of just making another ring, and then we can put a recess in that ring and insert like a nice medallion, maybe a nice piece of burl you've had sitting around, or another little scrap or offcut that's not big enough for anything else. We'd make a really nice insert medallion for that. So that's the process right there. All nice, tight, good joint there. That's our second ring. That will go underneath like so. Line those things up right on the center segment. Boom. And we'll just keep going. In this case, we're going to actually go down another ring, one smaller ring here, and we might do one larger ring on top. But so far, that's where we're at, and that's how easy the process is. So it's just kind of glue, rinse, and repeat. But we should end up with a pretty cool looking checkerboard here if we go this route. We could actually go full checkerboard when we do our glue up, if we wanted to, and just line up the walnut on top of the maple, and it'd give you a complete checkered look as you go up the bowl that way. And that might end up being a kind of cool looking thing too. We'll have to see. We'll have to see when we actually get down to the gluing up, if we want to do the rotating kind of spiral all the way around, or if we want to do an actual full-blown checkerboard. I kind of like overlapping. I think I'm going to like the zigzag overlap a little bit better. And then with our Purple Heart Paduk feature ring, it'll come up either to the top, come up into this shape, or we'll have it at the very bottom. I'm trying to decide still. I haven't made a full decision. I didn't sit down with a full software plan on this one. So, well, you've seen how this goes, so there's probably no point in me continuing to film this, but I'm going to go ahead and glue up this next ring, and then I'll cut up, I think, one last ring. We'll go three. We'll have four high rings, and then we'll have to come up with a nice base design. So that's where we're at for now. Oops, just lost my whole thing. But we know all of our segments fit together as long as we have our scribbling up. We know that we have a good tight fit. Just got to keep that pencil marks on the upside, and that way all of our cuts were canceled out. So perfect. Well, hello, my name's Tony and welcome to my wood shop. Today I'm going to attempt to turn this first checkerboard segmented piece that I've made. This is the second segmented bowl that I've made so far since making the wedgie sled, and I'm kind of trying something a little different. I did a very large ring in the bottom in terms of thickness, but I'm hoping to taper down into this solid walnut base. I glued two pieces of walnut together so I could go down in it and have a little room for a foot. Hoping that we'll still cut this into the section, won't use much of this bottom piece, but just in case I wanted that there. And then we have a walnut glue block here that I used to glue up the whole thing. So I'm gonna get this mounted up on the lathe and get to turning. It's definitely starting to get chilly out here. We're covering just under 60 degrees in the shop, but it's a 40% humidity, so dealing with stuff on both ends right now. I did learn a valuable lesson last time that I turned one of these. You cannot turn in reverse without putting a set screw in on these. Too many little knocking catches, and it'll want to screw right off of the tip and stock there. So I'm going to probably go ahead and bring my tailstock up too as I start this out, just to give it plenty of support. And I can run a board across the front up here, is what we did last time. It's probably one of those abundance of caution kind of things. But I have noticed with all these little extra corners, you do end up with more opportunities to get catches. And I don't like catches. Don't know about you, but it's not the thing. Just get that tightened up there. Turn the speed way down. Looks like we got pretty good concentricity with the glue up. Right in there at 800 RPM. So we should have no problems with that. I might go ahead and line up, throw a couple lines on this so I don't end up having to turn this part here, and I'll just take it over and chop that off real quick. Remount it, I'll be right back. I'm going to start out this with a 5/8 inch bowl gouge, and just slowly nip away the corners. Get this tool rest set first. Just nip away at the corners, start to round it off. See how we're doing peeling that away? Oh, that's coming together nicely. Okay. Some glue lines in there still. We're not all the way into the flats, but it's yeah, we're making some progress. Sweet. Our seams look pretty good. Still have a glue joint over here we're gonna have to get past, but I think it's gonna turn out pretty nice. Nice fluffy shavings when you're cutting nothing but that side grain. One of the huge advantages of woodturning segmented is you're not getting any end grain. Nice smooth even ribbon cuts. Pull down to here. Got a little bit more to take away here so we can get our round on this part, and that might end up being something I have to do when the bowl's turned around. Most of the joints look pretty tight. A couple that are not quite as tight as others, and I can see there's little fuzzies in a couple of them. So I might go ahead and put a little bit of glue in there while we still have it off, so it'll line up and have a nice tight filled seam. But most overall, I'm pretty happy. Got my angles established here. I'm going to go ahead and sand the outside before we get to the inside. Feeling pretty good about where we're at so far. It's going a lot quicker than I anticipated. So I know no one likes to watch sanding, but I'll let it run for a couple of minutes and then we'll just speed it up. Okay, I've got it set up pretty good here and sanded to 400, and now I'm just doing a little bit of the shop made grit here. Let's see how it turns out. I'm seeing a nice reflection in it. Some of the walnut was a little more open grain than I'm used to with walnut, and so it had some odd lateral kind of little pitting and pockets kind of that I couldn't quite figure out, so I just sanded and sanded and sanded until I got a finish that I was happy with, but it's definitely not what I'm used to with walnut. So let's see how this looks here with a little grit. Crank her all the way up here. The last of the with a nice clean towel. Okay, that's just the grit. Let's see how we did. That looks pretty good. Yeah, so there's no wax or anything on this yet. We'll take it over to the buffing when we're all said and done. But for now, it's time to get to the inside. I'll move the camera angle around so you can get a little better look at that. I don't think I'm going to need the steady rest. I really don't know. So it's only my second time doing this, and this isn't very deep, so we'll just take really light cuts and see where it leads us. Okay, we got it flipped around. I got my face shield on, ready to go. take a look at the progress we're making here. Feels nice and flat up there. This rim will swoop in. I'll take it all the way out to the edge probably. Won't leave it too thin on the edge because I don't want it to be fragile. But already we're about 3/8 of an inch there. So once we get down into here, this is where I'm start getting nervous that I'll start getting catches if I'm not careful. So we'll bring the tool rest around, raise it up just a teeny bit, and we'll just slowly peck away at it. So we're getting close into the glue line there. Now the more concentric you get your rings, the less of this you have to deal with as you get there. You can see I've already got one here that's flat, same side as flat, and there's one shorter, although it did have a chip in the wood here. But we're gonna, yes, there's a chip right there from sawing the wood. So we have a ways to go, but you can kind of see the more concentric you get it, the faster it goes and the simpler it will be to get rid of all your glue lines. We still have plenty of room here to get to that though. I think we got a glue line gone entirely there, see? We got a nice first course there is already in. So I'll go ahead and finish this rim up here before we go any further so I don't have to come back to it. And that's a little more indicative of what we're looking for. Just want to bring it all the way down so that we're swooping out of that second course. It's going to be a little thin, but I think it'll be nice. Yeah, now we've got a nice smooth transition up. A couple things are obviously need to sand, get little vibrations as it gets thinner. But that's coming together. I think I'm going to probably switch to a smaller bowl gouge here in a second. I think I can still stay pretty close to the surfaces I'm cutting, so we'll stick here for a bit. This has got a nice fresh edge on it. So. For our first three courses, where all of our glue lines are, so we're keeping a nice uniform wall thickness, so it's coming together. Getting down now though to where we're going to hit here, so I might have to start from the middle so we can smooth that transition into the bottom piece. And that is something, I'll switch to a smaller bowl gouge for. Look at it. I'm going to take off my coat though. My sleeves are getting too close to all that spinning stuff, even though they're fastened down. It takes one accident, and the next thing you know, you're being thrown around by your arm. Coming a little lower. Don't want any catches. This was the actual part that I was excited about, since it's a new kind of an experiment for me. And I was seeing how these swoops would look. And I think that's gonna look pretty darn good. Yeah. You have to get past that glue line down there. We got a lot of meat here, so shouldn't be an issue. So I start to blend these, and then we'll take traditional bowl passes. It'll be real easy to get going after we get up there. Keep getting still enough uneven surfaces there that it wants to catch. So we don't want to have any of that kind of tear out happening as we get closer in. So it's time to switch over to the smaller bowl gouge here and take much smaller, more delicate cuts. So I made it down into the other walnut base here, so we can see that all we have to do now is blend this transition in, and we should have a very nice bowl bottom there. I think that I'm going to get out a very sharp bowl scraper now. For some reason, the angle I can get out here is just not wanting to cut the way I think it should be cutting. I still have razor edge on here, so let's see if this cuts a little better. That's peeling away very nicely. Got some meat to take out there, but not much. Still good. Take a wee bit more, but not much. Actually, let's go bigger. Let's go bigger. Yeah, that's a pretty good edge. some real light passes up to just get this completely round, and I feel pretty good about that. Still seeing one tool mark in there that isn't going away. I think we can get that. Another sandpaper. That's pretty cool. All right, it's time for sanding. Bring you back when we're ready to put some finish on it. Okay, it's ready for some shop-made grit. We'll rub that in with a paper towel and then speed it up and buff it off. And I think it's going to be quite pretty. The outside turned out pretty nice. It's always fun to see something in your head and then get out in your shop and see if you can make it a reality. And I know there's nothing terribly unique about making a checkerboard ball. I've seen plenty of them. But I really wanted to try this longer transition into the bottom checkers, and that's something I hadn't seen yet in another bowl, so I thought it'd be something fun to try. Next thing I really want to try is to do a full segmented bottom, all the way into the point in the middle. And I think I have a couple of ideas from watching Tom Lohman and a few of the real famous segmented guys, how they do theirs. But I want to bring all mine to a dead point, so that's going to be the tricky part. So I think I might end up gluing it up in halves so I can fine-tune everything on the disc sander and then glue the two halves together. I think that's going to be the trick there. But I don't think I can get the precision cutting exactly to a point with any of the tools I currently have, or at least the skills that I have with the tools. So okay, let's buff this off here. Just getting up to about 800 RPM. We'll keep bringing it around until the cloth is clean. So right now our wall thickness on the edges is just a little bit under 1/4 of an inch. And the base, I did a nice little dishing on it, and I'll be able to control the rest of the wall thickness on the bottom, leaving a little weight on it because I do want it to be a bowl that's used. If I make it too light, put something in to reach for it, it'll tip over. But we'll make a nice walnut foot here out of the glue block and a little medallion we did in the middle. So it looks like we're pretty clean. I think we'll go ahead and get a little beeswax in there. Get a little beeswax in there. Protect the wood and give a little bit of extra shine. Hope that's coming through on the camera as pretty as in front of me here. Just a kind of fun combination. Everybody loves walnut and maple though, and that's kind of a pretty traditional combination there. And I didn't go for any twisty illusions like Papa 1947 does or anything yet, but some of those projects that he's put up really look fun and challenging as well. You know, he was a pattern maker, if I understand correctly, before he retired, so he's got all sorts of mad skills when it comes to coming up with jigs and ways to make things happen. Okay, I'm gonna let that set up and then I'll buff it off after about 15-20 minutes, and I'll turn it around and take the foot off. Okay, well today I lucked out and my Mega Super Jumbo Jaws from One Way showed up for my stronghold, and I'm gonna try for the first time using cold jaws here to take off my bottoms rather than my traditional way of scooping it in. I mostly got this for centering rings, and I'm like, well, if I got it for centering rings, I might as well also use it for taking off the bases and finishing up the bottoms here. So I do have a plan here of leaving a couple of decorative beads and then bringing the base into a small foot that should be balanced about 1/3 of the total diameter of the bowl. Let's see how it works. I'm taking very light cuts because I don't know exactly what it's going to do. It's a brand new experience, and I'm taking it slow and kind of just feeling where vibration is introduced and where I feel safe and comfortable and where I feel like, oh, that doesn't feel quite right. So let's shift to a little smaller fluorescent, getting closer. And we still have a nice edge on our gouge. So let's keep working away on this. I'm going to blend this down now. Fits very nicely. Sand that. And I can still bring this down a little bit more into this bottom foot here. There. Let's take some depth off of it. I think we'll come close. I hope I didn't misjudge and end up with a, yeah, it feels very thin. I think that might end up being my foot right there. I'll just flatten the bottom up and we're thin. I took a little too much. Good thing is, if we do go through, it would be easy enough to create a new medallion, but I would rather not go through the bottom of my bowl. So that'll give it a little bit of a shadow edge. I'll have to get out and measure exactly how thin that is before I make any more decisions. But let's just go ahead and sand that nub off real quick. Okay, good little shop grid on here. Blend in where we did the bottom of the bowl here with the rubbing and polishing. And then we'll throw a little beeswax on there now. Melt that in. It's our shop shine. We talk about it often enough, but got it from Woodworking McDaniel style was his recipe. Did a couple little tweaks to make it to kind of suit my style, but basically it's his whole style, his whole video on how to make this is great. I won't even bother making one. Can't improve on what he did there. So. Just getting some friction on that to burn it in. Now we get the towel hot. We'll go ahead and blend over here where we did our sand and blend here. Clean part of the towel. So put that into the wood, make sure that nothing comes off on our towel. And I think that's ready to take over to the burner and sign. Ah, it's pretty chatoyancy. It's a shame no one ever sees the bottom of bowls until they buy them. Well, my second segmented turning is in the books. This checkerboard bowl, did it start to finish, took about 4.5 days. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Appreciate you stopping by my shop. Please leave me a comment, like, subscribe, share. That always helps me grow the channel. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Get out there and turn something.